Welcome back to Walk Off, guys.
Once again. Once again.
So today we're going to break down a little bit of the Dàn Dàn Miàn that Simon went over and taught you guys how to make in the most recent video. So Dàn Dàn Miàn is a really classic Asian noodle dish with very little broth and a lot more noodles, and you can use beef or pork mince. We use beef mince in this one, but it's heavy in sesame seeds and sesame oil, which makes it really unusual and very delicious flavor, something that people in the West might not be so used to. Something that's very good at nourishing and tonifying the kidneys and warming the body. A number of the ingredients that we might not go over in this video have been gone over in previous videos, so you can go and look at the xian tang, the simple, or the broth breakdown. We're going to look at the simple stock breakdowns for things like coriander and whatnot. And in the mapo tofu, we went over the understanding more of beef and how beef, when stir-fried, makes beef, which is already warming, much warmer. So you can look at those there. So Dàn Dàn Miàn is composed of a couple things. Obviously, we have our beef mince, right? We've got our sesame seeds and sesame oil, right? And these sesame seeds, remember, are not mixed with sugar. You want them just straight crushed or ground sesame seeds mixed with sesame oil. We've got dark soya, all right? We've also got the ground and roasted Sichuan chili peppers and hua jiao, the Sichuan peppercorns. Another thing that we got in here is egg noodles, right? And then Simon tops everything off with the coriander. So let's break down a couple of things we haven't talked about yet. All right, one ingredient that we're going to talk about today that was not in the other dishes is the dark soy sauce, or you'll hear Simon refer to it as dark soya. In Chinese, sometimes we call it lao chou. So lao chou, or dark soya, is very similar to light soya in its flavor. It's salty. It's not as salty as the lighter soyas. It is more sweet though. So whereas light soya is a cooling soy sauce, it will cool burns and things like that. The dark soya is slightly warming, and the reason for that is because things like molasses and cornstarch are added to the soy sauce during its fermentation period, and that warms it up overall. So brown sugar, turbinado sugar, sometimes, which is what brown sugar can be referred to, molasses, these are all types of sugars that are warming, and so they will slightly warm the soy sauce, making dark soya slightly warming. So overall, the Dàn Dàn Miàn dish that we're preparing is a warming dish. It will warm you up in cooler weather. Dark soya enters the same channels as the light soya. So we have, for example, the stomach and the spleen and the kidneys, so it promotes harmonization between the stomach and the spleen. So any sort of disharmony that will create things like nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, it will help to correct that when added to certain dishes. So it will help to harmonize those things. It will also help to tonify the kidneys, to move, kidney yang up the body, and to help strengthen the kidneys through its salt content, as long as you don't overdo it. One of the unusual things that dark soya has going for it that light soya does not is that due to the cornstarch and the molasses, it has the ability to moisten dryness. Particularly in the case of dark soya, it moistens lung dryness. So it can moisten the lungs, which can get dry in cold and dry weather, such as the fall and the winter. So dark soya in the Dàn Dàn Miàn is very good at maintaining moisture in the lungs. So if you're out on a cold, dry day, Dàn Dàn Miàn could be a dish that you could eat that would help you rejuvenate fluids. It would also warm you up, so it would help to warm the center, warm the stomach and the spleen, warm the fluids in the stomach to help push them, and to places like the lungs and the skin to moisten you during cold and dry environments. Another ingredient we have in the Dàn Dàn Miàn is the sesame seed, or the zhima. So zhima, or sesame seeds, are generally sweet in flavor, and they're generally neutral in temperature. However, if roasted, they tend to get a little bit warming. Now we're going to grind these seeds, and we're going to mix them with zhimayo, or the sesame seed oil, right? So in general, oils will take on not only the oils from like a nut or a seed will take on the function of the overall plant as far as what channels it moves into, but it will also generally, most oils have an affinity for moistening the intestines and the stomach, and so they will move into the channels of the stomach and the spleen and the intestines. Sesame seed oil helps to helps to moisten the intestines and the digestion in general. So sesame seeds have an affinity for the liver, the kidney, and the large intestine channels. They tend to tonify the kidney jing. Because they are a seed, they do carry that jing aspect with them. They also nourish the yin of the liver, and in this case, liver yin is blood, right? So it will help to nourish the liver yin as it moves to the eyes and as it moves to the tendons of the body. Sesame seeds will moisten dryness and clear heat, oftentimes due to dryness. They also lubricate the intestines, as I said earlier, so think of things like constipation due to heat and lack of lubrication in the intestines. Sesame seeds and sesame oil are very good for moving the bowels. When added to the sesame oil, you think that you're also moving these strongly into the digestive system even more. So oils in general, sesame oil in general, helps to nourish and moisten the intestines, but also the skin, right? Epithelial tissue of the body. So you're gonna find this is gonna be good to moisten the skin and the intestines for any sort of dryness that a person might have. All right, another ingredient we have in this dish is heizu, right, which is black vinegar. So this is a black rice vinegar. So vinegar is a very interesting ingredient. Vinegar has a sweet and sour flavor, and it can range from cooling to warming depending on how it's processed and fermented. Black vinegar in general is more warming. Vinegar enters the channels of the liver, of the gallbladder, and the stomach. So the most obvious quality of vinegar is that it's astringent. When you put it on your tongue, that puckering, souring nature of it is that sign of it causing the body to astringe, right? What do I mean by that? It pulls fluids together. It causes the body to hold on to fluids. So it also arrests bleeding. So you can think of someone who is excessively sweating. Maybe it's a really hot day. They're excessively sweating. And they're working very hard. They've worked very hard all day. They've worked out, athletes, this and that. Even in the winter, right? You could be excessively sweating in a dry climate. Or a moist climate, right? So it could be a climate where the humidity is very high. You'll see in some martial art cultures, in Japan and China, sometimes when you're working out in hot environments, the teacher might have you take a shot of black vinegar, and it will help to astringe and close the pores so you don't excessively sweat. So that's a little tip for some of you athletes out there who might be exercising and you might be heavily sweating and you're becoming too dehydrated from your exercises. You may want to tone back some of the exercise, but sometimes also the environment you're exercising in is so hot. Taking a bit of black vinegar will help to close the pores and reduce the amount of sweating, so you reduce your moisture loss. And here in this dish, we use black vinegar to help to astringe and hold on to fluids. You can think of black vinegar as arresting bleeding in the sense that it helps to break up blood stasis and helps to invigorate the circulation of qi and blood. So anybody who's had a history, any woman who's had a history of having periods, somebody might have intestinal bleeding, these things will help to astringe the body, pull the tissues together, move the circulation, but arrest the bleeding in the area of the injury or in the period where things are coming out. Also, somebody may have had heavy surgery, right, and they're still having weeping in the area. Vinegar could be used in food, in the right amount to help arrest bleeding and move qi and blood in that area. In some Dia formulas, or the Di formulas, they will vinegar fry herbs, certain herbs like moyao or rushang, the myrrh or the frankincense, to make them more astringent, to stop bleeding in the area and to cause the area to pull together. So they'll add them to herbs that break up blood stasis and move blood, but also what it does is it strengthens the ability overall to arrest bleeding in Chinese medicine. An interesting thing is, even though it's very astringent, it breaks up and invigorates, it breaks up stagnation and invigorates the movement of qi and blood. It also dissolves hardened nodules. So one thing you'll find is that a traditional Chinese medical treatment for, say, fish bones being stuck in the throat would be to drink vinegar tea, or vinegar shots to help dissolve the fish bone. You'll see in cooking, you can put hardened meat, you can put bones in vinegar and they dissolve. So it helps to dissolve and break up hardened nodules in the body. Vinegar also stimulates digestion. So anyone where digestion is not moving, because it's moving and circulating qi and blood and it enters the channel of the stomach, it will stimulate the movement of the stomach in peristalsis. particularly if the liver is invading the stomach due to some sort of emotional issue. So if you're feeling emotional and you're getting those butterflies in your stomach, vinegar helps to calm that. So this black vinegar is really, really effective for that. Now this black vinegar is more warming than the whiter vinegars, so it will help to add to the overall warming nature of the dish. So if you look at the overall nature of this dish, if you look at the overall ingredients, we've got your beef mince that have been stir-fried, right? So they're extra warming. We talked about this before in the mapo tofu. When you stir-fry the beef mince, you make it more warming in general. Remember to keep aware that if you do have sinus congestion or congestion in the chest of hot phlegm, you want to avoid stir-fried beef dishes. But if it's a cold day and you want to warm yourself up on the inside and you don't have these hot phlegm conditions, this is a good dish. So you've got your beef mince, your stir-fried beef mince. That's been stir-fried with the tianmianjiang, the sweet bean paste, and soya. You've got your ground sesame seeds and sesame oil, so like a sesame paste. You've got your dark soya. You've got your roasted and ground Sichuan chilies and your Sichuan peppercorns, so your la jiao, your chili peppers, and your hua jiao, your peppercorns. You've also got your Chinese black vinegar, right, your hei zu. So putting these things together, the other ingredient we have is the egg noodles, right? So Simon, in this case, used fresh egg noodles. This is a very warming dish. And when you add the noodles to it, one of the interesting things about noodles is that noodles are generally something that help to promote digestion in the stomach and the intestines. So egg noodles will have a tendency to do the same thing. You want fresher noodles. One of the things about noodles is that they tend to harmonize digestion. They tend to move things through the digestion. They also tend to soothe the stomach. You'll find this in people who have difficulty eating, difficulty maybe digesting. They might feel like they have uncomfortability in the stomach. After they eat noodles and say drink noodle water, they kind of feel better. In China, we do this a lot with jiaozi, the dumplings. And they'll find that when you're using whole grain wheat and or sourdough, really healthy wheat-based products, your digestion feels better. Right, so you want to make sure when you're having the noodles that the fresher the better. If you notice, Simon pulled them right out of a packet. They were sealed. A lot of times they're made and they're frozen, or you go right to a noodle shop in China or Japan and they're fresh made there that day, and you're using them in a few days. You can put them in the fridge to slow down the oxidative rate of the noodles. One of the reasons is because the oils that come out of the wheat tend to oxidize within a few days, so the oils can go rancid. So you want to make sure you use the noodles as fast as you can. The egg noodles will also help to nourish as long as you have as long as they're with the freshest ingredients and they're healthy and not full of a lot of preservatives and colors and dyes and whatnot. They'll help to nourish the stomach and the spleen and help to harmonize stomach and spleen. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the name of this dish, because this is a really cool name for people who are just coming onto this channel and don't know much about Chinese. The term Dan Dan Mian actually refers to the way that these noodles were originally served. So Dan, the character Dan, which you will see here, is a traditional character. Doesn't look anything like the character here. Same character Dan in the modern Chinese that they use, or what we call the jiantizi. So this here on my left is fantizi. This here on my right is jiantizi. Fantizi means the more difficult character, and the jiantizi is a more simplified character. So why doesn't it look the same? So the traditional character for Dan is the character for something that is carried on the shoulder using a pole, right? But the modern character is a simplification of that, not using the same strokes to mean the same thing. They're using a phonetic-based thing based on the term Dan with the sun over a line. So we're going to stick to the traditional character because it exemplifies a lot more where this dish came from. So as you see in the shouzapang, in the character where they have the arm as the radical here, this is the idea of using your hands for something. And it's symbolizing with the rest of the character that a pole is carried on the shoulders, right? So in the old days, what would happen is the people who sold Dan Dan Mian on the street would carry it along the street, and there would be a place where you might have the noodles and a place where you might have the sauce pre-made. Very easy. And so the noodles were very easy to make. You could get them pre-made and steamed, and you could stop off every now and then at the noodle store for hot noodles and refill your container of noodles. And on the other side, you could have your container of sauce, and you could quickly mix it on the street and serve it to people. Hence the name Dan Dan Mian. or this idea of carrying these noodles on the shoulder. Mian means noodles, so Dan Dan, to carry something on the shoulder, or pull across the shoulder, noodles. So this is the reason why the traditional character is really interesting in this dish. We hope you guys enjoy your Dan Dan Mian. And remember, if you have any questions, put them down below or comments, and we'll see you on the next walk up. Be well, guys.